Greetings, Mavericks and new viewers. Tonight, direct and live from the Maverick News Network World Studios. This is Maverick News with Rick Walker.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Rick Walker. Welcome back to the Maverick News Channel. Hello, Maverick family. Great to have everybody here. It's going to be a great night. We have one of our knights with us. Gina's waiting in the back wing. She's going to join us later in the broadcast. We're going to get into the news of the day, though. First of all, we're going to talk about foreign interference. Back making headlines again today. Jagmeet Singh of the NDP in Canada taking the lead on this now. He's sounding the alarm. He's worried. A lot more concerned than the Prime Minister seems to be. So we'll get into that. What else do we have for you? Man, this is going to be a Truspiracies episode, really. That's why Gina's here. She's going to help us with our Truspiracies episode at the bottom of the hour, because we're going to get into news so real, it's unbelievable. Including, and you're going to want to hear all about this, J-Lo and Ben's sexless marriage exposed. So this is going to be fun. But we're actually going to talk about some serious stuff, too, during the Truspiracies segment. I honestly don't know where to put this, whether we should put it in with our regular news or with not even Truspiracies, but the wacko stories, to quote Pierre Poilievre. Stephen Guilbeault, Minister of Environment and Climate Change, talking today about the carbon tax. So we'll bring you his comments on that. So those are kind of the main things. Also, Joe Biden kind of wandering around in a daze at the G7 conference. We've got some other stuff to talk about as well, including Biden and Zelensky signing a bilateral security agreement as they try to push Europe toward continuing the fight against Russia in Ukraine. So we have all of that. And Alex Jones, too, still under fire, under a lot of pressure. It looks like now he's saying that the government has a conspiracy of some kind to take away his X account. So we have all that and a whole lot more. Stay with me. We'll be back right after this.
You know, someone very profoundly once said many years ago that if fascism ever comes to America, it'll come in the name of liberalism.
Well, I think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the Founding Fathers. If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on Earth.
The entire world is watching.
Every dictator, every crazy dictator in the world is watching. The world is watching. On TV,
the entire world is watching.
on social media.
But the entire world is watching, and yes, they are seeing what we have apparently bravely been willing to say that others are thinking.
Stand for freedom. Literally stand for freedom. Let's get this done. The entire world is watching.
We're at war with the most dangerous enemy that has ever faced mankind in his long climb from the swamp to the stars.
Maverick News. Maverick News. Maverick News.
Let me have more control of my own destiny.
The world is watching.
Foreign interference, it's a much bigger issue, I think, than anyone realizes. It's a much bigger issue than we have been told. It is, I think some people are, I hate to use the phrase, but they're actually beginning to wake up to the problem. Today, Jagmeet Singh, leader of the New Democratic Party in Canada, speaking to reporters, says a recent spy watchdog report, which we've all been focused on, this NSICOP report shows a number of members of parliament have knowingly provided help to foreign governments. He actually went so far as to say that the people involved in this have been involved in not just unethical, but possibly even illegal activities. And I'm even seeing the word traitor thrown around today as well as a result of Jagmeet Singh's comments. Not about him, about some of these unnamed members of parliament who, I guess, have been targeted, some of them possibly compromised, and it is not clear why. To me, it's not entirely clear why we are not getting a little bit more information on this to identify exactly who these guys are, especially as we head into the next federal election. He says he's more alarmed today after reading the National Security and Intelligence Committee report. He saw the unredacted version, says he hasn't seen everything that has been available to the investigators, but he has seen this unredacted report. We went over two of the reports here, two reports that have been publicly released last night. We gave you highlights, and here's Jagmeet Singh with his reaction to seeing even more of the information, and this is not good.
Dans l'ingérence étrangère, et après avoir from intimidation, who are the most frequent practitioners of foreign interference. People should be free to speak their mind.
Hang on a second here. Here we go. We did not have this quite queued up properly, but I want you to hear this because this is heavy.
Foreign interference is harmful to Canadians. It is especially harmful to people connected to countries like India and China, who are the most frequent practitioners of foreign interference. People should be free to speak their minds, disagree with foreign governments, advocate for policies, run for office, exercise their vote, and be free from intimidation and harassment. At its extreme, foreign interference can result in violence, as we have seen with the alleged involvement of India in the murder of a Canadian on Canadian soil.
So he's connecting that to this.
Today I'm going to speak to you about my impressions and opinions based on the unredacted report from NSICOP on foreign interference. I'm not going to discuss the details from that report, like the names. I'm not going to do that because to do so could jeopardize the ability of our national security systems to do the work that we need them to do to keep us safe, to safeguard our democracy. It is important to say that while I have seen the unredacted report, I did not have access to all the same intelligence that the members of the NSICOP committee had when they came to their conclusions. But after having read the report, I am more convinced than ever of the conclusions of the NSICOP committee and the report. that some parliamentarians are, in the words of the intelligence services, semi-witting or witting participants in the efforts of foreign states to interfere in our politics. That all of these behaviors of these MPs are deeply unethical and contrary to the oaths and affirmations parliamentarians take to conduct themselves in the best interest of Canada. In short, there are a number of MPs who have knowingly provided help to foreign governments, some to the detriment of Canada and Canadians. There are also politicians at all levels of government who have benefited from foreign interference. Some of this behavior absolutely appears to be criminal and should be prosecuted.
Wow.
The redacted report also discusses the Conservative leadership contests, which were the targets of foreign interference by China and India. The Prime Minister has had access to intelligence that raises concerns about MPs knowingly benefiting from foreign interference. He may disagree with that intelligence, but I believe he has not taken the steps he should have to deal with this. He has sent the message that he is willing to accept some level of foreign interference. The leader of the opposition has had information for 10 days that Conservative leadership races were the target of foreign interference by India, a country that is also alleged to have killed a Canadian on Canadian soil, as well as interference from China. His response has been silence. He's not answered a single question from the media. We do not know if anyone from the Conservative Party has followed up on these concerns. And he refuses to get security clearance to get further information that could help him know what happened and what he can do about it. He doesn't want to know, and that is deeply troubling. No one should put their party's interests ahead of the country's interests. Canada comes first. I am not relieved after reading this report. I am more concerned today than I was yesterday. This government has received multiple repeated warnings and recommendations and has not acted. Today, Canada is vulnerable to foreign interference, and this weakens our democracy and the confidence of Canadians. I believe we must find a way to let MPs who are named in this report know that we know what they're up to. I believe this can be done in a way that doesn't compromise national security. If there continues to be no consequences for MPs who knowingly help foreign governments act against Canadian interests, we will continue to be an easy target. Removing MPs who knowingly participate in foreign interference would have the deterring effect on this type of behavior. It would send a message that these countries cannot try to use MPs in this manner. I'm ready for any questions you might have.
Was Elizabeth May wrong?
Incredible.
Because she said she was relieved.
Now, I'm responding to the details or my opinion based on the report that I read. The unredacted or the redacted version that Canadians have access to alone should have raised serious concerns and should have maintained those concerns. The redacted version of this report makes it very clear that the Prime Minister knew about this and that there's serious allegations directly impugning the Conservative Party and Conservative Party leadership races, and Pierre Poilievre doesn't want to know. Those should already be seriously concerning. What I read has only bolstered the conclusions that NCCOP report outlines, has only made those conclusions even more concrete.
Mr. Singh, why are you saying the Prime Minister is not willing to take action in the face of what he knows?
Based on what is already publicly available, we saw that he was slow to act and accepted a certain level of foreign interference. That has been confirmed by the report, and it shows unwillingness to take this as seriously as it should be taken. And the fact that Pierre Poilievre doesn't even want to know makes it clear that both of these individuals, Justin Trudeau and Pierre Poilievre, are putting the interests of their party ahead of the country, and that's wrong.
What parties are these MPs associated with? And you're saying MPs, so I'm presuming that they are currently sitting, correct?
I can't respond directly to those two questions, but I can say that there are serious concerns about MPs. That was the conclusion of the NCCOP report, After having read the unredacted version, I am more convinced than ever of the conclusions of the report that is absolutely true.
Was there anything in the unredacted report that was connected to you personally?
I was a target.
Expand on that?
For Nikki Ashton to take her family to Quebec City.
Français?
S'il vous plaît. Est-ce que ce que vous êtes en train de nous dire, c'est qu'il y a des députés actuellement qui siègent à la Chambre des communes qui ont fait de l'ingérence étrangère, alors que Mme May nous dit le contraire. C'est la conclusion. Vous avez une conclusion complètement différente d'elle. Vous vous rendez compte de la lecture du même rapport?
Les conclusions dans le rapport qui est public indiquent aussi qu'il y a des...
We're talking about possible criminal activity. Not possibly, says that there has been. Possible charges then? Not just removal from office, but if that's what they've done and they have engaged in some sort of criminal activity, then they should be charged. This is far from over. Far from over.
We're all on the same page here. How are you a target? How are you a target?
The report indicated that I was a target.
Is it time to walk? Our democracy is on the line. Is it time to walk away from your affiliation with the Liberal Party? Liberal government.
What the report indicates to me is that this is something that's very serious and should be alarming to all Canadians, and that it requires action. And so what I want to do is, I think that first of all, every leader of a political party should read the unredacted version. We should talk about how we can take the necessary steps as leaders to ensure that each of our parties are protected from interference in this manner. And we should continue to do the work in committee like we're doing, pushing for the public inquiry to also include the Conservative Party leadership races. We should, as leaders, meet and discuss how we are ensuring that none of our candidates that are running, so that we can ensure that our democracy is protected.
En français, M. Singh, donc vous avez mis au défi tous les chefs de parti d'exclure de leur caucus n'importe quel député qui serait mentionné dans ce rapport.
They're not acting in the best interests of the country. Exactly.
Est-ce qu'il y a des députés qui soient exclus?
But he's okay with it. He's going to continue to prop them up.
Que vous avez pas à
Coalition government. Without the NDP, the Liberals are sunk. Then we have to have an election. Amazing stuff. Absolutely amazing. Disgusting, really. I mean, it really is. Here, let's bring this up. Here we go.
MPs that are involved, wittingly or unwittingly, are they traitors to Canada?
What they're doing is unethical. It is, in some cases, against the law, and it is indeed they are indeed traitors to the country.
Are you comfortable sitting in the House?
Within the report
I'll give you the next one.
that are criminal in nature, why do you say that?
Well, this was the conclusion of the NCCOP report that's publicly available as well. It was just confirmed upon reading the unredacted version. I can say that conclusion, I'm fully convinced that is absolutely true.
Are you comfortable knowing what you know?
I'll give you this.
Well, you go next.
You have any comment on Nikki Ashton taking her family to Quebec City over Christmas and billing taxpayers $17,000 for that trip?
All MPs have to follow very strict rules in submitting their expenses to the House of Commons.
This is a different story.
Those I expect all my MPs and all MPs in the House to follow those rules and submit claims. Those claims were submitted and approved.
Why are you comfortable? Sorry, I let you go, so it's my turn. Are you comfortable sitting in the House knowing what you know, and is there a list of MPs in the unredacted report?
Well, the redacted version also suggests there's MPs, so that's publicly available, and that's confirmed by the unredacted version. So certainly it is clear that there are MPs, plural. That was available publicly, and that's confirmed in the unredacted version as well. So it is very serious, and this matter is not in any way addressed, and that's why I said I'm not relieved at all, nor, in fact, I am more disturbed today than I am yesterday. I'm more disturbed by what I've learned, and it really does highlight to me the failure of leadership of both Justin Trudeau and Pierre Poilievre. Deeply concerning failures of leadership. Like, I don't understand, after having read that report, why Justin Trudeau didn't act sooner and continues to show inaction. and why Pierre Poilievre, as I am, a prospective candidate to become Prime Minister of this country, why he expects that people should have trust in him when he doesn't want to know about very disturbing allegations directly connected to his party that India, among other countries, were involved in foreign interference in leadership races. The fact that he doesn't want to know and has been silent, I believe, very firmly disqualifies him as a prospective leader of this country. Disqualifies him entirely.
Okay, we've gone through the meat of that. It is I don't know how much more serious things can get. If you have members of parliament who, as he says, are traitors to the country, it's a coup. It's at least an attempted coup, a partial coup. How much more serious can it possibly get? We need more information. The Canadian people deserve to know more. We deserve it. We need to know it, especially before we go into that next election. I've been telling everybody this for 3 years, 2.5, however long this program's been on. Members of parliament, corrupted. That's what I've been saying. It isn't so much the system, it's that we have people in the government who have been compromised. That's why we're getting such crazy policies. People, our viewers in the United States, you should take note of what is going on here, because I can guarantee you have similar things going on down in your homeland as well. So this needs a lot more attention. I'm sure we're going to get it. This is just the beginning, folks. This is a political hot potato. This is red hot, man. Nobody's safe right now. Nobody. And I mean, nobody's safe politically. All these guys, they're all in trouble. I don't know exactly what's going to fall out from this, but it ain't going to be pretty. What else do we have before we get into our segment here with Gina? We have Biden at the G7, stumbling around, looking like he's zoned right out. I'll just show you the video of this. This is nuts. This guy, he is... Some skydivers fly in. He's there watching, but it's like he can't focus. Look at this. He's looking away. The big event's over here, Joe. Joe. Big event's... Joe. Where are you going, Joe? Hello? Hello? Joe, it's over here, pal. Yeah. Oh, what's going on over there? Oh, let me get out my shades. Oh, yeah. Oh, now I can see. I don't know, man. That's real. That is real. Real disturbing. What else do we have here? Just trying to burn through some of these stories. Kind of got it. That's the main thing. Like Donald Trump also, new survey done by The Economist shows that Trump today has a small lead over Biden, but they're describing it as a small but real lead, and they're saying that this lead gives Trump a 2 out of 3 chance of becoming president again, while Biden's chances are just 1 in 3. Those are the odds by The Economist magazine. And there's their graph. Shows he's got a... You can see that he's out in front, but not by much. Not by much. Who's ahead in the national polls? And it's got just broken down by states. You can see what's red, what's blue. It's neck and neck, really, but we knew that it was going to be close. I think that the RFK Jr. factor is going to be a big factor in this. I think it's going to hurt Trump in the end. And I don't think that the polls are all that accurate. Now, also today at the G7, Joe Biden and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky signed a 10-year bilateral security agreement. We had heard about this earlier. Signed today. It's a deal on a multi-billion-dollar loan, which is designed to help Kyiv defend against Russia's aggression in Ukraine, their special military operation. Biden said today that they're not backing down. In fact, we're standing together against this illegal aggression. Those were Biden's words. Now, this is an executive decision. It is not, it's not something that the rest of the U.S. government voted on. So, as a result, if there's a change in the White House, we get a new president, the new president could just overturn this. And so even though it's supposed to be an ongoing commitment to provide military support for Ukraine, it's really only valid as long as Biden is in the White House. So that happened today, and it's meant to send a signal more than anything to Russia that the United States is committed to this fight in Ukraine. And I would say that support for the war over there is waning here on the home front in Canada and the United States. Not that it was all that strong from the beginning. In the beginning, I would say it was probably fairly strong, probably about 70-30 in favor of providing support, maybe even greater. Today, I bet you if you went around and surveyed, and maybe I could find a survey on this, but I bet you more like about 60-40 against. In fact, a friend of mine came over today, just briefly, I had a chat with him, and you know what he said to me? Exactly what I told you here the other night. I said, I think most people are rooting for Putin. They're rooting for Putin. They're on Russia's side, and that's exactly what my friend said while we were having a chat in my driveway. He said, I'm on Russia's side. And I thought, wow, that's significant, because it just shows that we're very vulnerable, or well, at least the Ukraine is very vulnerable, because if support is not strong here, that's about the funding and the military support, and without that, they are dead over there, and I mean that in a very literal sense. So we'll talk about it more in the days ahead, but I don't know. I never thought I'd see the day when we would be in a situation where Canadians and U.S. citizens were rooting for Russia, cheering for Russia, as we are sitting here really engaged in a third world war already. Possibly even going kinetic. Possibly even going nuclear. Totally crazy stuff. And in fact, this was the response here from NATO to all of the nuclear saber rattling that we've seen down in Cuba with the arrival of those Russian ships and that Russian sub. Here we go. This is the NATO position on nuclear weapons.
What we have seen over the last years and months is a dangerous nuclear rhetoric from the Russian side. We have seen that Russia has announced that they have deployed nuclear weapons to Belarus. And we have also seen some more exercises. NATO's nuclear deterrent is our ultimate security guarantee and our ultimate deterrence. And this is something which is developed over many years, the nuclear sharing arrangements, where the United States has nuclear weapons in Europe. but where allies are providing the planes, the storage, the command and control, the support to make this an effective and secure part of NATO's total deterrence and defense.
And if you don't think that members of Parliament in Canada are not compromised, there's this strange clip from Elizabeth May of the Green Party in Canada, all related to the foreign interference issue. This was sent to me today, and I didn't take note of it before, but she also has read this NSICOP security report, and listen carefully to what she says. And I've told you before, Canada is under attack. If you don't believe me, just listen to what the leader of the Green Party in Canada has to say.
We take our marching orders, I do anyway, I shouldn't speak for everyone. I take my marching orders from the permanent representative of Palestine to Canada. We take our marching
let it go one
orders,
more time.
I do anyway, I shouldn't speak for everyone. I take my marching orders from the permanent representative of Palestine to Canada. We take our marching orders, I do anyway, I shouldn't speak for everyone. I take my marching orders from the permanent representative of Palestine.
Okay. I told you, you're getting this convergence of liberals, really extreme left-wing progressive liberals like her, and fascists. Communofascism, communist fascism, socialist fascism. Far left, far right coming together. She's on the progressive left, which is the same as being on the fascistic right. The Hamas and the other, extreme Islamic terror groups, the fascists. That's the side she's on. Okay? I'm just telling you. I'm just trying to tell you. You got one eye open, better open the other one, and then you'll be a little more aware. That's what's going on. Saying it for a long time. Elizabeth May, Green Party, take note. I'm actually surprised at the language that we got from Jagmeet Singh, but I'll tell you this. Those reporters were right to hold his feet to the fire and say, hey, why are you going to continue to prop up the Liberal government if you know that there are members of Parliament in there who are compromised, who are engaging in and helping to facilitate foreign interference to the level where you're actually calling them traitors? Now, I guess we don't know which parties they're with, but very concerning. Interesting, too, that he's specifically mentioning Pierre Poilievre. There's something else going on here. The other shoe is going to drop, and something's going to blow up with regard to all of this. And even though Poilievre has been trying to score points on this issue, I have a feeling that there's some bombshell that's going to blow up in Pierre Poilievre's face. Something he's maybe not aware of because he hasn't read the full report. I don't blame him for not reading the whole report. I don't agree with Jagmeet Singh's assessment. I don't blame him because, if he reads it, he has to agree. He's bound by a secrecy agreement. He can't talk about a lot of what's in that report after that point. And so he wants to be able to speak freely without restriction. If he reads the report, he can't do that. So he might see things that he can't actually act on because he can't talk about it. We need to find a way to get this information out to the voters, to the people. We need it. We deserve it. The very survival of our nation, of our democracy, depends on it. It is, honestly, crazy. Now, talking about what's crazy, we've got crazy news coming up right after this because we're going to get into now, shift gears, and bring you Truspiracies. News so real, it's unbelievable. So we're going to get into that on the other side of this. Stay with me.
Greetings, brave Mavericks. Our quest for truth continues. We go beyond fake news. Together we expose propaganda. Together we pull others out of rabbit holes. We are maverick thinkers. We are all unique individuals, defenders of individual rights and freedoms, credible, trusted, grounded in reality. Maverick News, Maverick News. Defending free speech, free speech. Donate at freedomreporters.com. Do it now. Tomorrow may be too late. Maverick News. The world is watching.
Okay, let's bring her in to just do the tee up for the Truspiracies segment. Hello, Gina.
Hi, everybody. Hi, Rick. Oh, Sexless, hi, too.
Hey, the ratings just went up. We've got your pooch in the background there.
Yep.
That's great. Okay, so Gina has been sending me a lot of stuff lately, trying to convince me of a few different things, and I've been trying to convince her of a few different things. So we're gonna have a conversation about a few different things tonight. Everything, I think, probably from chemtrails to the monarchy, which we were discussing on the phone earlier. I think it's going to be fun, and we're going to get right into it. So fasten your seatbelts, because this is Truspiracies, news so real it's unbelievable. Did you see my Uncle Bucky?
I did.
Yeah,
He's
isn't he
handsome, devil.
Isn't he an attractive guy?
Oh, he is. I didn't know, Rick. Would you really want to talk a little bit more about that?
Well, you know, when he's king of the lizard people, and he's my Uncle Bucky.
Uncle Bucky. Well, hello.
I just. There you go. What a handsome devil he is, and a devil he is. Oh boy, where do you want to begin tonight, Gina? I want to talk about a bunch of this stuff. Gina's been sending me stuff about chemtrails. So yeah, she sent me a video overnight. I've got that thing queued up. I thought we might watch some of that, and we can watch it together. And then I'm going to tell you what I think, and you can tell me what you think, and then we'll see where we end up. Okay, so let's watch some of this. Let me see if I can find it here. Mr. Chemtrail dude, where'd you go? Oh, come on. Is it there? No. Where'd it go? Maybe I lost him. Come on. I had him all queued up.
Uh-oh.
Oh, I'll find him again. There he is. I found him. What's this guy's name again?
I can't remember, but I do watch him occasionally.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. His name's Richard Vobes.
That's it. Yeah.
Man, he's got a lot of subscribers. All you have to do these days to get an audience is just talk about chemtrails, I guess.
Oh, he talks about all sorts of other things too, natural herbs and farming and homesteading and all that stuff too.
Yeah. So let's bring this thing up on the screen here. Okay. Let's start. So, all right, here we go. Here we go. All right, Gina, you can beat me up.
Hidden, for obvious reasons. They work within the industry.
Hang on a
and
second.
They know. Hello, and welcome back to the channel. Thank you for joining me in another of my wonderful interviews. Now, as you know, on this channel, we've been talking about the stuff they've been doing in the sky. Have you looked up? Have you seen it? Of course you have. You know what's going on. And we feel pretty impotent about doing something about it. Well, I want to find out more. And so I was reached out by a couple of very lovely chaps who I've been talking to behind the scenes for a couple of weeks. These are pilots. Now, they want to keep their identity naturally hidden. for obvious reasons. They work within the industry and they know what's going on, but they are prepared to speak. And this...
Why do they have to keep their identities secret?
Well, because they're pilots, Rick, and they'd lose their jobs if they were to be exposed to the public after what you hear. Well, I mean, you've watched it, so you know what you hear. And I mean, if
so these guys are up there, so they spray us with this stuff. These guys.
Yes.
Okay.
Is a chance for you and I to find out a little more about the real murky world of the chemtrails, the climate engineering, the stuff they're doing in the skies. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'm only going to give you their first names, and we've also digitized their voices. And if it's not digitized enough, you may find that even my voice has been digitized in order to protect their identity. So
my
I hope
voice
you'll
has
bear
not
with
been
us. So,
digitized.
first of all, I'd like to introduce Eve. Hello, Eve.
Yes, good evening. My name is Eves. I am a commercial pilot. I have been for just over 25 years. I flew 10 years in freight and then the rest of 15 years on business jets. And so I have extensively traveled all around Europe, America, Canada, the Middle East, and as far as Singapore. And I'm based in Frankfurt. And my original country is Belgium.
Thank you very much, Eves. And the second pilot who we're going to talk to is Russ. Hello, Russ.
Hello, Richard. Thanks for having us on your show. I'm Russ. I've had a lifetime in aviation, starting off firstly in the military. Then I moved on to commercial flights, which include passengers and cargo. And currently I'm working in the private sector, both the UK and into Europe.
Sounds like my Uncle
Bucky.
Bucky.
Thank you very much, both of you, for joining me. This is a great privilege of myself, and it's going to be fascinating for the audience to find out exactly what is going on. As I said at the beginning, we're all aware now, I think, and a lot of people are waking up to the fact that the skies are not what they were perhaps, I don't know, 40 years ago. Maybe they've been doing it a long time, but we've certainly seen a huge amount of this spraying. I'd like to find out from you both, A, what it is they're doing, what they're spraying, and if you have any idea about who's doing it, why they're doing it, and what...
I disagree. I was watching contrails in the sky when I was a kid. If anything, there's more air traffic, but I don't know, Gina. I don't... Honestly.
You gotta watch. You got to listen to what this guys say. They explain everything.
Okay.
What the motive is. These are some of the questions. And of course, finally, what we can do to put an end to this. Because if we're all breathing in whatever is being sprayed, that potentially is damaging our health. And that's not a good thing for anybody, especially as none of us has asked them to do that, as far as I know. So who would like to kick off with what they're spraying and perhaps why?
Yes, I can answer that, Richards. So what they're spraying, we've all around Europe, we have had tests done from the dust on your car, from the dust on roofs, and I've noticed the chemtrails personally for about the last 10 years. So they have been tested. If you go onto a website that I'll give you initially, it is geoengineeringwatch.org. That's geoengineeringwatch.org. A lot of confirming information can also be found on that website. So we have had many samples tested from various laboratories where they have mass spectrometers, and the main constituents are barium, strontium, aluminium oxide. The first two are carcinogenic. Aluminium oxide promotes Alzheimer's disease, amongst other things. And there are various microplastics, up to 2% uranium, and graphene oxide, which we all know about. These
microplastics. What are microplastics? That seems to be a catchphrase I've been hearing in recent weeks. more and more people.
Well, microplastics are pretty well in everything anyways, but, microplastics are in the soil, it's in the water, we drink it, we eat it, we breathe it because it's minuscule pieces of plastic that's been broken down into the soil and the air and everything, yeah.
It's chewed up, it's
yeah.
ground up plastic.
Yeah, and I mean, you got to think, in a garden, okay, like we've got plastic over our plants, and that will break down into microplastics and go down into the soil, and some of it will end up in the food that we eat.
Uranium, whatever.
These tend to be the basic elements in what they're spraying. The justification for it, they say, and we're talking the New World Order, globalists, etc., is to dim the sun, because it's climate change or whatever they want to call it next week, is to dim the sun and to insidiously poison everything. It is the depopulation program. It all leads back to that. It leads back to the World Health Organization. It leads back to the WEF, the WEF at Davos, and the main players who are sponsoring this are the Bill Gates Foundation and various others. But this is in their Agenda 2030, in the Agenda 2021. It's well documented in the Johns Hopkins University agendas.
Like Gina.
Yep.
He's making all these claims. He's saying all these things. I don't see, like, it's in agenda. He's hitting all these hot button points that get people jacked up. But where in Agenda 20, like, I don't mean to put you on the spot. You're not saying this, but where does it say in Agenda 2030 that they're spraying the skies with chemtrails to dim the sun? I know that the Gates Foundation, right, and Bill Gates, they have a plan where they've talked about it. It is a real idea, but I've seen no evidence that, aside from some experiments that they've done, that that they've actually started to do this. There's no evidence of that anywhere. And they're not offering any evidence. They're just saying that it's happening. But I don't see any evidence of that at all. And I'm sorry, I'm not buying the chemtrail thing. So just because they've got,
I really argue about that point.
But where's the evidence? Because I can explain what you're seeing in the sky, but he's saying that that's what this is, and it's just one of these stupid things, and he's saying that this is all laid out in all these documents, and the WEF's doing it, and the globalists, and the New World Order, and but these are just catchphrases. This isn't any kind of proof of anything, and I don't know why would you believe this guy?
Like I said, I've been following him for some time, and
I'm not even talking about him. Like, I think he's kind of a joke too, but these two pilots, why? We don't know who they are. We don't know what their real names are. We don't know anything about these guys. So what credibility do they have, period? This could be just two guys that he paid $50 to sit there and just spew all this stuff.
But he has proven to me in a lot of his other shows that he's debunked a lot of other stuff. So he's a debunker, right?
Okay, well, let's watch them debunk.
They are all publicly available. So it essentially does two things. It is to block out the sun and to insidiously poison everything.
So what's the point? What are they trying to do? They're trying to poison us, or are they trying to block out the sun? And
depends on what they're putting out there, right? I know that they've got they do have it in the Paris Accord. You and I talked a little bit about this, and them having to do, and about that, and that they're trying to do things to supposedly protect the environment, and it is in there about the spraying of blocking out the sun.
In the Paris Accord?
Yes, it's actually in there. It's in their whole agreement.
I don't think so. I don't think it's in the Paris Accord to block out the sun.
It's in there. they're trying to protect mankind, and they think that the sun is too powerful and they've got to stop the sun from coming down. And I mean, if they continue blocking the sun like they've been doing, I've watched it, I've seen it so many times in the sky, Rick, that, you know, when I hear stuff like this, I understand your disbelief. But when I'm home all the time, and, you know, last summer I was so pissed when I came home from the lake one day, because for hours I watched these guys come over the ridge of the mountain and continuously spray. I was just livid by the time I got home. I couldn't believe it. Like, and from the time I was out there, it was a beautiful blue sky. And by the time 3 or 4 hours were up, there was no blue sky left. It was gray as can be. And all the, and I mean,
you see an airplane go by, and you see.
It's not just an airplane. There was multiple airplanes.
Okay, and then it rained. So
again, and went back and forth and did it right over the freaking lake that I was kayaking on.
And then it rained later in the day. Well, you know, like, it's been a beautiful sunny day. It's nice and blue out here. And you know what I've got on my phone right now? A severe thunderstorm watch. So. Yeah. And
I so get what you're saying, Rick, but
it's called weather. It's called weather.
You know, you can't have a beautiful blue day, like a blue sky day where, you know, everything is gorgeous. It's been a clear night. It's been a, you know, good day, and it's been warm. And then all of a sudden you see within hours of, you start seeing several trails of that. Next thing you know, the sky's gone gray. Now it keeps happening. We go from having blue sky days literally to going to gray within hours. And I'm sorry, I've watched it. I've watched the clouds. I've watched how they've formed.
You know, that you're just making assumptions. You're drawing conclusions based on really just, I don't know what. It was beautiful an hour ago. Now it's raining. Therefore, it's chemtrails.
No, when I see the sky, when I see the sky's blue, and then all of a sudden I see that there's all of a sudden multiple grades of lines going through the sky.
But here's the thing, though, Gina. Do you know why you might see those trails in the sky and then get rain? Because you've got a cold front or a warm front. No, because you've got a cold front or a warm front moving in. Do you know what causes a storm? It's when a cold front and a warm front collide.
Yeah, that's right. It changes. It has all
right. So if you've got like different weather fronts moving in, you could have clear blue sky, then a huge temperature change dramatically in a very short period of time, and then you start to see the trails in the sky because of the way they're actually formed, which is from the heat of the exhaust from the jet engines. And if you've got suddenly a temperature change, then that can cause the contrails to form.
Right, and I watch that, and I can tell the difference between the ones that are coming up and that they dissolve, and they've dissolved very quickly. Those are the chemtrails that you are talking about. The ones we are talking about are the ones that are in that picture that last there for hours. Those are the ones we're talking about.
They can linger for.
Chemtrails do not last any longer than shortly minutes after it's gone through its phase.
Why do you say that?
It has to do with the ice crystals and the temperature of the sky and how long the whole thing process goes through.
What's the temperature of the sky when you have contrails?
No, Rick, I didn't write all this down.
I know. Okay, well, all right, we're gonna play it.
Just by blocking out the sun, of course, you're actually depleting the amount of vitamin D that people can receive, and also, of course, prohibiting
it's an insane plan, and it's a real plan. I'll give you that.
And if
that's
not
a real thing.
Animals, and consequently,
and it is a stupid thing to do, and I hope they don't do it.
Precisely, and yes, it's the animals are eating the grass. It's in the grass. We've been speaking to a lot of farmers. As I say, I'm from Belgium, and a lot of the farmers there are reporting all sorts of problems with animals, particularly newborn animals such as lambs. And yes, it's starting to affect everything, and it is insidious. And of course, your doctor, when you have something wrong, they have no idea where it's from.
Yes, and this has been going, we know, from at least the 1940s, but I've had reports that hot air balloons were sort of mucking about with weather testing in the 1880s or something.
Yes. Also, it's in the public domain. If people search for this, there are hundreds of geoengineering patents have been applied for by a variety of companies from around the world. And again, it takes a bit of research, but if you do the research, you'll find that the main sponsors for a lot of these companies all go back to the same sources, which is some of the Soros foundations, the Bill Gates foundations, and so on. It gets a little bit more involved because with a lot of the metal particulates in what they're spraying, both at around about 10 to 15,000 feet, the higher level altitude spray that they're doing is mainly contaminants in the fuel. We dismissed that to begin with because we thought the hot section of the engine will just melt everything, but in actual fact what they're putting into the fuel it has a higher melting point of around about 900 degrees, and hot sections of the engines tend to burn at around 700 to 800 degrees. So, but much of these spray applications that you can...
Okay. See, this, Gina, this is why I know these guys are liars. Okay. Because he's got all that information wrong. And he's supposed to be a pilot. If he's a pilot, I'm a brain surgeon. Okay? Because, first of all, he's talking about these jets. They don't cruise at an altitude of about 15,000 feet. They cruise at altitudes of about 30 to 40,000 feet. And it's very cold up there. He's talking about the temperature of those engines. He's not a pilot. He would know what the temperature of those engines is. They're not at about 700 degrees. They're at about 1,200 to 1,300 degrees, twice as hot as what he's saying. Jet engines burn so hot using jet fuel that it will melt steel. And they use special cooling techniques to prevent the engines from melting down themselves. He's making this crap up. Or he's just the information he's providing is not accurate. Altitude's wrong. Temperature of the engine's all wrong. So how can I believe anything that he's saying? And if you're, a gasoline engine in a car, how hot do you think that gets?
Well, hot enough that if you put your hand behind the exhaust pipe, you're going to burn it.
Right. A car engine burns fuel and operates at about 180 to 195 degrees Fahrenheit. I know that because I work on cars. And when I'm looking at the temperature gauge in my car, if it's sitting right in the center where it should be, that's operating at, depending on the thermostat that you choose to put in the engine, 180 to 195 degrees when it's sitting right in the middle of the temperature gauge. So that's the operating temperature of a car engine. That's really hot. And when you turn that on in the wintertime, you'll see gray exhaust coming out the back because that's basically a contrail. Yeah. Same effect, okay? Right. You put a jet up into the air, right? Mm-hmm. And he's off on the altitude. You get up to 30,000 feet. The temperature up there is about anywhere from minus 30 to like minus 80 degrees. Mm-hmm. Plus you've got, right?
The ones that I seen on the lake that last summer literally were way down. They literally were just coming right over the ridge of the mountain. Like, I'm not kidding you, Rick. Like,
well, yeah, and I wouldn't dispute that, that there is some spraying that goes on. You've got crop dusting. You have programs where they will spray things even in forested areas for different reasons, right? Mm-hmm. But those kinds of programs is not this stuff. This is about depopulation and spraying everybody with poison is what these guys are saying. And that's not true. This is about, and they're saying that the Bill Gates plan to dim the sun is already underway. They've done some experiments, but it's not underway. It's not happening. They're scaring people. And I can tell that they're lying because they're not. This guy's not who he says he is. He's not what he says he is. Because if he was a pilot, he would have thousands of hours in the cockpit looking at the gauges, including the temperature gauges of those jet engines, and he would know the temperature at which those engines operate. And he's got it all wrong. So he's not who they're frauds. Instantly, I'm like, these guys are not getting it right. Wrong information, so no credibility. Got to be lying.
Well, from my understanding, the sun thing has already been, that project has been in place now for some time. And that's why they're having so many problems with the olive plants. That's why they're having problems with the lemon plants. There's a foreign fungus that's growing on them because the sun is not shining as much on these plants. And therefore, it is actually killing off the plants. So... No, from my understanding, it is going on. Geoengineering is a real thing, Rick.
Geoengineering is a real thing, but it's not being done on a global scale like this.
I believe it is.
But there's no proof, Gina, that it is, except these hucksters, these snake oil salesmen, selling you a lie. And I can't believe anything these guys are saying because, and I'll continue to play it, but these pilots are frauds. They're saying things that are they're getting the information all wrong. So if they're getting this basic information wrong, then they're not credible. They gotta hide their identity and talk like the chipmunks. Like, why? Because it's fake. The whole thing is this is just entertainment.
You can see aircraft doing actually doesn't go through the fuel. Some of it's in the fuel, a very small amount, but a lot of it is actually external nozzles. So HARP, which I think everybody has now heard about, there are various sites around the world. This is high frequency, but they're using thousands of watts. So it does affect the ionosphere. And having the metal particulates in the ionosphere already, they can then cause different pressure or heat domes, as they call it, which then manipulates the jet stream, which then picks up more water as it has a longer sea track. And then when they collapse the heat dome, the jet stream then comes over the UK, over Northern Europe, and we have 2 to 3 times the normal rainfall. This is all done by design.
When people look up and they see the aircraft flying overhead, the immediate thought, I suppose, to many who are awake to what's going on.
Just one thing about the HARP, okay? So that's a real thing. It's based in Alaska.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody, they're all jacked up about HARP, because it's just a little nugget of truth and then exaggeration and fear porn wrapped around it. HARP. Are you aware of even the kind of radio waves they're using or what they're doing with the energy that they're putting up into the atmosphere?
There's a lot of things about HARP that I've followed over the years and been quite amazed with what they have, the technologies that they've been able to do. There's a lot of talk about a lot of things, but I'm not there. So, I mean, that's just the hard part about all of these arguments is I'm not in that plane and I'm not there,
Me either.
Right. So, I mean, despite the fact that, whether it's true or not true, I mean, I believe that often there is truth in many things that are spoken. I mean, that it's just kind of the way that it is just in life, right? But how much of it, they've, like you said, they take one piece of it and then they feed on this or they feed on that, depending on who you're talking to. I mean, I understand that, there's all sorts of really interesting things going on, and that there's a lot of scientific research that a lot of us, if we don't dive our nose into it, we don't understand it. And to try to explain everything in an hour of all of the things that I understand, it just wouldn't make any sense. Probably some people in the chat would probably understand, but others wouldn't, and would get frustrated or upset. So
people are probably having their heads blow up right now just because I'm talking about it. HARP, as I understand it, operates within megahertz. So that's the same frequency band as FM radio.
Yeah.
Depends on where on the band they're operating. I think they do some stuff with microwave transmission as well. I'm familiar somewhat with that kind of technology because I worked in television.
Right.
Okay, and when they're talking about, when he says thousands of watts, he's sort of correct, but to put it in perspective, all right, if you're talking about thousands of watts, a radio station operates, like a big radio station will put out between 50,000 and 100,000 watts of power. Now, that gives the radio station an effective range probably of maybe 200 miles, maybe, okay, maybe 300. If it's a big, a big station with, say, 100,000 watt transmitter, like a big station. So that shows you kind of the range that you can get with a 100,000 watt or a 50,000 watt radio station. For instance, there's a radio station in London, Ontario. It's about an hour from me here, okay, so about 100 kilometers away. And it's 50,000 watts. I can barely pick it up. Only on a really good day. And it's just, I can barely get it here. If I go very much further west, I'll lose the station. And it's not really, you can't really listen to it very well because it's not very clear. On the other side, like WJR radio out of Detroit, it's also about, I think, about 50, 60,000 watts. So it has an effective range where here I can listen to it, but it's a little bit closer than London on the other side, by probably about 20 miles or so. Okay, so that gives you sort of the idea of how much penetration or depth that they can get. Now, if you've got line of sight, nothing obstructing anything, then, you're going straight up, then you're going to get a lot more range. So they can get into, unobstructed, into the higher ionosphere and things like that to do these kinds of experiments. But my point being, even if they're going straight up, they're not going out. And they can affect the weather pattern like right above them. So they could affect maybe whatever they're doing in a very limited area here at that moment. And then that, whatever happens to that air mass at that point, then it can drift from Alaska to go wherever it might go after that, and set off a reaction of some kind from there. But what I'm getting at is there's not enough power up there, because I know that the HARP system up in Alaska has the power of about 10 radio stations max. So it's about 500,000 to maybe 1 million watts total power. That's not enough for global geoengineering. It's for experimentation, and it's in a very limited space. And I don't know everything about it, but I do know this. If you're going to change the weather for the entire world, okay, you're going to need a lot more power and more than one station.
And that's what I've heard, is that there's more than one station.
Well, I'm not aware of any others, and even if there are, they don't have enough of them out there to be affecting the global weather patterns. And like, it's just, there's just no proof. Like, I know that I'm acknowledging that these are real things,
yeah,
but not on the scale that these kinds of shysters are trying to convince people of. This is clickbait, is what this is. This is a little bit of truth and a whole lot of exaggeration put out there by, I would say, fraudsters. But that's why I'm saying, like, you know, you're dealing with somebody who's credible if they're giving you actual facts. But as soon as if they're putting themselves out there as experts, and they're getting basic pieces of information wrong, like the operating temperature of a jet engine, when that's one of the core pieces of information you would need to talk knowledgeably about this issue, about this topic, if they're getting that wrong, then they're not an expert.
But can't they piggyback energy? Like energy can be piggybacked along different frequencies and be bounced from one thing to the other. I mean, if you want to go, you know, you want to get into the scientific talk about the quantum physics and like, I mean, there's so much. Like, I mean, this is my point, right? Like, I mean,
you can bounce. Yeah, you could bounce the energy. You've got a point there, because, for instance, with like a CB radio, when I was a kid, we used to play with CBs, right? And you used to be able, you'd skip. You know what skip was?
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
So you could skip the signal off the sky, at some points at night. Right. It didn't work in the day, but at nighttime when it was really clear, you could sometimes get the signal to bounce, and you'd be talking to somebody hundreds of miles away.
I know
that
is
really possible.
Cool. Yeah.
So that's a possibility.
So, okay, so say that's going on, and say they are doing some spraying out there that might help enhance those sorts of things. Could that not help possibly skip things along depending on the chemical mixture that they're putting in the skies at specific times? They could be doing this at specific times to cover, like, if you want to follow the moon, you want to follow all of that. Like, there could be so much more involved with this, Rick. Like, these
words that you're using are key words.
It's just hard to see.
See, I dropped my pen. I can't think anymore without my pen. My mind goes blank. I have a spare right here. I just changed my brain. But you see, it's not adequate to say there could be something going on, or it looks like there's something going on. There could be a lot of things going on, but unless I'm seeing real evidence and proof of something, then anything else beyond that becomes speculation. There's no proof of anything, just because, you know, they could be doing this or they could be doing that. And these guys, in my view, after listening to even just this portion of it, I don't think they're credible at all.
Well, the first 15 minutes is probably like the best part about it. After that, it kind of more goes into, you know, other talking stuff. But
I would put it to you, and I would submit that it's the other half of this that it's really all about. It's not really about the chemtrails at all. What this is to get people scared, to get them to distrust the government, and then the other half of this is to suck people down into the rabbit hole and sell them on ideas about the government and law, sovereignty, and alternative points of view, common law issues, things like that.
Well, don't you remember about a conversation that you and I had quite some time ago about this, probably going back, I don't know, possibly even a year and a half ago, about a court case, I think it was in Mexico, and they actually won it against the Mexican government because they had sprayed and they actually collected debris, and they won in the court case. Now, I'm not saying, so, you know, I mean, basically, when you find proof like that, and they have no way, they couldn't deny it, and they did end up, you know, being found guilty over this. They had to pay the people in that area thousands of dollars, and because so many of them ended up with cancer and all sorts of things. It was a scientific research thing that they did. I mean, that's the thing about the government, right? Like, you know, I mean, the smallpox thing, the grade 9 shot. Most people who get the grade 9 shot end up with things that, you shouldn't be getting. But it seems to be a very common thing. And it just seems to happen after these things. And, like there's too many common links about too many things. And I know, like, I love you, Rick. But there's many times when I'm like, no, like when when we're having you're having your show and stuff like that. And, because it's kind of one of those things where I just don't, sometimes I just see that you only kind of see one side of things, and not that that's a bad thing. I mean, I still love you. But it's just kind of one of those things that, sometimes one has to open one's mind up to.
My mind is open, Gina. I'm sitting here. I'm so open that I'm actually giving you the platform and other people. I'm talking about this. I think this guy is a fraud. And I just gave these two guys or say they're pilots. They're fake. They're not pilots.
Okay.
They don't, because they're not getting the information right. I just explained why, and you're just ignoring it.
No, I'm not ignoring it. What I'm saying is that, all right, maybe these guys are frauds, and maybe you are onto something, and I'm not going to say that that's not possible, because it is highly possible that this is all totally set up just exactly like you said.
Yeah, because he wants the 48,000 views that he got. That's why he's doing it.
Well, that's very possible.
Yeah.
I mean, I understand how, the clickbait and all that stuff sort of works. And so I totally understand that concept. However, when you see so many people all over the world seeing the same thing that I'm seeing,
I see.
You just can't deny that there's something going on.
Something going on.
There's something, we don't know what it is. I'm not a scientist. I'm not out there going out and
I know what it is.
And this.
I know exactly what it is. You have commercial air traffic. These are jets flying at 30, 40,000 feet in the air. It is minus 30 to minus 70 degrees. So these jet engines operate at temperatures of about 1,200 to 1,300 degrees, twice the temperature of what that guy came up with, okay? When the cold air, which contains moisture, even though it's cold, it contains moisture, it comes into the engine at minus 30 to, it can be as cold as minus 80 degrees up there. That's incredibly cold. Plus, you have wind chill with these jets flying at high speed. It's injected, it's captured and forced into those engines, into the turbines at high speed, extremely cold, instantly, in the blink of an eye, pow, from minus 30 to minus 80 to 1,200 to 1,300 degrees in the blink of an eye.
Yeah, ice crystals form. And
right,
I'm not
so you get
you
get the condensation that comes out the back end.
Right.
What those trails look like depends on a number of factors. Depends on temperature, depends on how much moisture is present in the atmosphere at any given time and where they are. Okay? Mm-hmm. And so that will dictate whether you get a contrail coming out or not. If there's not enough moisture, you won't. If the temperature and the conditions aren't proper, you won't get one. But if they are proper, you'll get it. Now, you have to remember that those things that you're seeing in the sky, those are like 30,000 to 40,000 feet up. That's about 7 miles up in the air. So that's 7 miles away from you. And then you look at how broad those things are. Have you ever been to an air show?
Yep.
Okay, so
I
you
used
see
to
when...
live in Abbotsford. I grew up over the Abbotsford Air Show.
So when those jets or the planes are flying and they put the smoke on, right? Well, that's not 7 miles away. That's like a very short distance, right?
Yeah.
Line of sight, visual. And they only have a limited supply of that smoke on board those airplanes, right? Now, okay, you put you've got these jets flying around all over the place, blah blah blah. They're passenger jets, but let's say that they're even specially equipped. All those jets are specially equipped. Where do they all go? Are like all those jets? What are what? Do they just have like chemtrail jets, specially equipped with all these?
They do.
Oh, they do. Okay, so even if they load up a jet with a tank,
Yep.
that's 7 miles up. You put how wide do you think that in scale? Do you think that trail is up there? How wide across is
I
it?
don't know.
And then how many miles do you think that jet has flown just in that picture there alone?
No, normally that's not just one jet. Normally it's several of them.
Okay, but I'm talking about one line. Each line would be from one jet.
Yep.
So how did they get all of that material into all that plastic, all that uranium, all that aluminum oxide, all those nanoparticles? How did they get all that volume of material into a jet? Because that stretching right there, that's got to be, I'm looking at off on into the horizon. I don't know how many miles of a trail that would be. That's got to be 80, 100 miles, 70 miles,
Well,
100 miles.
I watched a plane, several of them in one afternoon, go around, go over the lake, spray the lake, stop spraying, turn around, come back, go back over the ridge, come back again, spray again.
Yeah.
I watched this all afternoon.
Okay.
All freaking afternoon.
Yeah.
There was no fires. There was no nothing. It was a gorgeous day, and then all of a sudden it wasn't.
Okay. But what's he spraying? And where was he spraying it? On the water or on the trees, or what was he doing?
They were spraying, literally, they come right over the mountain, and as soon as they came over the ridge, and it was more than one plane. There was
What
three
kind of
of
plane?
them that were both, I
What kind
don't
of plane?
know.
Was it a
They-
propeller-driven plane? Was it a jet? I'm just asking.
They looked like they were smaller planes, so
Yeah.
something that would possibly spray for, field sprays or something like
Sure.
that, possibly.
Yeah, I
so
believe that.
they would fly over the ridge, and then they would cross over, and I'm like, I'm watching it, and then I'm watching the sky all afternoon, and slowly from that time on. And I actually pointed it out to other people that were on the lake, and I said, look up, look what's going on. Oh, I've never noticed that before. I've never seen anything like that. I wasn't the only one who's seen it. I pointed it out.
I believe you. I believe you saw it, Gene. I believe you. I believe that you saw that.
The thing is I'm not the only one who sees things like that. And despite whether or not they're all bad,
there are explanations.
They may not be. They might be. I mean, I've heard some people say that they're spraying stuff to reverse the stuff that's being sprayed. I've heard all sorts of different things. What's true, what's not true, I can't tell you. But
Sure.
what I can tell you is things are being sprayed in our sky. Now, I'm not the only one. Pretty well, I mean, there's lots of people in the chats. There, that it's, everybody, there's lots of people that believe that totally believe that what I'm speaking of about the chemtrails, that they are there. I also recognize that there are chemtrails, so I am saying there are both. And sometimes you're right. You may not be able to tell the difference, but when you see a grid in the sky and you see that kind of a pattern going on, that's not normal, Rick. And
Yes,
you have
it is.
to admit that.
It depends on where the jets are going. And I have over here I have Detroit, over there I have Toronto, over there I have Buffalo, over there is Chicago, and these jets are flying, not just to those airports, but from those airports to all kinds of even international destinations. This is an air traffic route. And so they're heading in different directions. So sometimes they cross, sometimes they go in the same direction. And I'll say that, the only way that they're going to get that volume of material, that white line for that distance, is because the what you're looking at there is not material that's coming from the plane itself. That's the vapor in the atmosphere that was already there that's been crystallized. That's why you can have a line that goes for that distance and is that visible. That because the plane can't carry that amount of material and continue to put out a line with that volume like that for that length of time. Like you've got the exhaust from the jet engine from the fuel itself, but it's the heat combined with some particulate from the fuel that's been burned, and then the moisture. It's the moisture that's already present. So they don't need to, the point is they don't need to carry the effluent because there is no effluent. It's moisture that's already present, that's crystallized and turned into essentially a cloud. It's a trail of cloud, a crystallized trail of ice particles and vapor.
Right.
That's what you're looking
When
at.
I was a little girl, and even when my daughter was a little girl, we used to spend hours sitting on the trampoline, staring at the sky, looking at all the clouds, and watched all sorts of different little critters, you know, oh, that looks like a bunny, oh, that looks like a frog, oh, that looks like whatever. I don't see a lot of those clouds anymore. What I see is that. And
Well, where did you grow up? What
basically, my daughter grew up. Well, we lived all over BC, but I mean, we've lived in, you know, all over, like in Prince George, Merritt, Quesnel, then the Fraser Valley. I grew up, you know, Mission, Abbotsford, Langley. Although
would you get a lot of jet air traffic going over there? Like I get a lot here because I'm in Southern Ontario, so we have big cities, you know, all kind of around us, far
Langley's
distance,
not
right?
very far from Vancouver Airport, right? And
Yeah,
so,
but you're north, right, from Vancouver, so I don't know how many jets kind of fly that way. I don't know, but I think these days you get a lot more air traffic than you did back in like the 70s. There's just more people and more jets flying and people taking more vacations than ever before. You know, keep in mind that these jets really only became prominent and common kind of in the 60s and the 70s. And then you started to see more and more of it when they transitioned from the 50s to the 60s and you got away from propeller-driven passenger aircraft. If you go back and look, you didn't get the contrails like you get today because you didn't have jets flying overhead. You had propeller-driven aircraft. And you got some, but not like this.
Well, Abbotsford is an international airport.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, I mean, it gets flights from all over the world that go there. So, I mean, and
yeah,
you
so
know,
you're going to see it. Sure.
So, but not like that, Rick. You know, maybe you see more of that, and maybe that's why maybe that's why it seems to be more normal for you. But I guess
I've seen it all my life is the point. It's like, oh, look, it's changed. And
Did you grow up in that area mainly?
Yeah, I grew up in London, so I remember in elementary school, they used to let the grass grow really high sometimes out in the field. And sometimes it was like, it'd be up like to your waist high. And I used to go and pat down an area during recess and make like a little area to hide. Yeah, and I'd just sit back there and I'd lay down and I'd just look up at the sky and, you know, I'd see contrails even then. That was in the early 70s.
I did too, but they never lasted like they last now.
Sure,
so all of these things
did.
just...
Yeah, they did.
Well, see, I mean,
when they're jets, I used to do it like all the time in the summer, and I remember it distinctly. Like I used to look up and dream, right?
Yeah.
You
See,
know?
one of my favorite things to do was look up in the sky too. So that's interesting. Yeah. So maybe they've been spraying more in your area than they did in mine, and maybe it's been going on a lot longer than we know.
But I'm saying it's they're not spraying. It's vapor trails.
Right. And I understand that that's your argument. And I do believe that a lot of them are vapor trails. I see it, and I've seen them, and I'm just like, yep, and they don't last very long, and so I can, you know, recognize that that's something that...
They will dissipate more quickly depending, again, on the atmospheric conditions, the temperature of, you know, and how much moisture is present at any given time. Sometimes they're like there, and then they disappear quickly if there's not much moisture, if the temperature isn't that cold. So they'll disappear. But if you get into the right conditions, they'll linger. They'll absolutely linger. And yes, there is cloud seeding that does take place. There are projects where that happens, and governments do spend money on cloud seeding operations, to try to benefit farmers in some places. It's not like I'm saying these things don't exist, but the assertion here is that they're spraying us with chemicals and poisons to kill us, to murder us.
That could go back to that original one where I told you about, like, I think it was in Mexico about a year and a half ago. I found it, and it was a court case that actually linked back. So this could be, this whole thing could be based from that truth of those times and could be brought into these times. But it's hard to believe that one government would try it in one place and they wouldn't try it in other places, because we've seen what's happened with other things, and everything else. And, and I followed a lot of medical stuff, and,
why would some of these, it just does this whole video thing, all this, it doesn't add up. Look, he pretends to be asking tough questions, and he asks these guys, well, why would the pilots who are doing this continue to do it if they know that they're going to kill people by spraying these poisons? And there's no real adequate answer given. And then the other thing, Gina, is...
You've never watched the TED Talks, have you?
Which ones? I've watched lots of TED Talks.
Okay, so you're aware of the TED Talks with Bill Gates and them talking about depopulations and
oh, I know. I've also seen the altered clips, and some of these crazy people do want fewer people on the planet, and I'm not saying that either. I'm not disputing that, and I know that like this what I'm saying is that this stuff is not being done on this scale that everybody is not everybody, but the people who are believing this, idiots like this, assholes, honestly, like this, who are just engaging in fear porn to scare the shit out of people intentionally. This guy's a jerk. He's scaring people, and he's screwing with people's minds. This is a terrible thing that he's doing to people, and this is a fraud. And I'll bring him on in a heartbeat and talk about it with him, because what he's doing is a giant disservice to people. This is wrong.
Well, I don't know. I've listened to a lot of his programs, and he seems to be genuine. He seems to have a genuine heart, but that's just my opinion.
It's irresponsible is what he's doing. Let's watch a little bit more. Can we do that?
Okay, you bet.
Is that these have been either fitted covertly or with the pilot's knowledge to normal commercial flights. Is that the case, or are these special aeroplanes doing this?
It's a mixture of both, actually. The initial culprits were freighter aircraft that have been converted. We've done a lot of research into this in Europe, and we're finding there's a company who supply freighter aircraft called ASL. They have actually supplied some of these companies, some of these aircraft, leased some of these aircraft to various companies around Europe, freighter companies who then apply for the conversions, which are fairly simple to do. In the UK, there's a couple of companies that we've also been keeping an eye on.
I'm going to say this too, like, show me the planes. Show me. I want to see, because there's no way they can hide all this. If all what we're seeing in just in that one picture, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, what is that? 3, 6, 8. There's 8 in the air right there. There's 8 planes. Show me the planes. Where are they? These specially equipped chemtrail planes.
Well, when they go farther into this conversation, they talk about asking people to do time lapse of them and filming the planes actually flying over with really good cameras, and they're recommending that people do that in order to have proof. They also say that the reason why they say that there are some people in some of these airports that are talking to them, and that they but they're afraid because of their jobs and stuff. They don't want to say anything what they have or haven't seen.
Well, what kind of a human being would they be if they're afraid of losing their job to kill people and then come on here and pretend to be doing something virtuous like saving humanity by blowing the whistle, but they don't want to put their job on the line. They want to go back to murdering people the next day.
Well, you see, the thing is the people don't know what they're spraying.
But these guys do, and they're afraid of losing their job?
They could be being told that they're, just do what you're told. I know in the army and stuff like that, if it's the military that's doing this, they're told to do a job. They don't ask questions.
Well, these guys are asking questions, and they're on here supposedly blowing the whistle, and they're afraid of exposing their identities because they're afraid of losing their jobs killing people.
Well,
how does that make sense?
I know myself, if I was out there spraying, I would never do anything like that. But if I was out there spraying populations and somebody told me to shut up and just do my job, I'd quit because
right. And these guys are putting it out there like it's so serious that they need to alert humanity. Yeah.
Not everybody cares about other people.
Well, these guys are being,
these guys are whatever. Like they might be, sinister people or just don't care. They don't think about.
But they're being portrayed. They're supposed to be people who care. This is the truth about chemtrails from pilots who are blowing the whistle, and they said that they've been working on this for years to expose it. Meanwhile, they don't want to let anybody know what their identity is because they don't want to lose their job killing people. It makes no sense whatsoever. Does it? Like, think about it.
I get what you're saying, and like I said, maybe this is and that's why I'm trying to be vague with this, is because maybe you are accurate. I've said this already once. Maybe you are accurate. Maybe this is just all clickbait.
In this case, I think it is. Yeah, I think these guys are frauds.
Right. Okay. And I can even accept that. However.
And I'm not trying to beat up on you. You didn't make the video.
No, you know what? It's all good. This is called debate, and me and you. I mean, we can debate things. You bring it on, right? Like I'm good when it comes to that sort of stuff. Because I mean, the bottom line is we know something's going on. Do we know really what it is? No,
I think we know. I think we do know. I think that there are experiments going on.
That's where we differ. See?
No, but look, I mean, maybe we're closer to this an agreement with this than you think. I think the only thing that is separating us here is I know that all these things are real.
Yes.
I acknowledge that there is experimentation that's going on. I also acknowledge that there is, pesticide spraying. There's crop dusting. There is even cloud seeding that has been taking place on a limited scale. In fact, there was a story about 6 months ago that ran here in Canada about scientists who were jubilant because they had successfully seeded clouds in an experiment. And they were like, yay! And so that was publicized, and they felt that they had achieved some level of success in this experiment. But that's so I see these things going on, and yes, I know the whole dimming of the sun plan, which is absolutely freaking insane. That's a Bill Gates thing. And I understand that there are people who do want to depopulate the earth. They're insane too. But these things that people have talked about that are being experimented with, it doesn't mean that they're being implemented on a mass scale. It doesn't mean that what you're seeing in this picture is even what this guy says it is. I'm saying that it is not, and that it's not even possible for this to be like that. I'm pretty sure that if they were dimming the sun and they were spraying this stuff, whatever, like these, what is it? What are they? It's like an aluminum type of material that they put up into the atmosphere that they want to put up into the atmosphere, which is crazy too. But I don't think it would even look like that. It wouldn't look like the reason these are white and look like kind of clouds is because they're cloud. It's basically a man-made cloud from the heat reacting with the cold air. That's why it looks like a cloud, because that's how clouds are formed in nature. It's warm air fronts meeting cold air fronts. It makes clouds which hold the moisture, and then eventually it rains. And that's why those look like clouds. But if you're putting metal particles into the air, if you're putting uranium's not going to look like that. Uranium, well, they shouldn't be spraying that anywhere. That's nuclear waste or worse. But that it's not going to look like that. You might not even see it. If they are spraying the stuff, it probably isn't visible. Even those plastic particles, there's no way to put that volume of plastic into the atmosphere to make a line that long. Like, is plastic white? No. It's all ground up plastic, microplastics, ground up pieces of plastic. It's not going to be white.
Well, there's all different colors, but I mean, I know that there's been particles that after areas have been sprayed where people have said that they've collected it and it's black. And I mean, I've even heard things where they have talked about like fake snow, where there's been conversations of, they put the snowball underneath the fire and it doesn't melt. Now, if there's truth to that, then what's that, right? And why would they be doing that anywhere, right? Like, unless it was to put out a fire, unless it was, there was fires in the general area or something like that, I could see it then as it, getting lost in the wind and carried someplace else. But where a whole community gets it or a neighborhood gets it, like, that's really weird, So, I mean, you hear these things and it's all just, this is Truspiracies, right? And I know that there's a few people in here that, she doesn't know anything and whatever.
Well, yeah, and I didn't mean to put you like in a position where you're trying to defend this guy. We're just having a conversation because we've been talking about it. That's all. And I'm not trying to, beat the crap out of you or anything.
There's going to be some people that are going to call me whatever they're going to call me.
I'm afraid to look in the chat. Are they beating me up too?
Yeah. Well, it doesn't matter.
Yes.
That's the problem.
Rick's an idiot. He doesn't know anything.
Well, the thing is that there is some of that going on, but K5 is calling me an idiot. So, this time, mind you, there are people calling you an idiot too, but K5 has decided that I'm an idiot.
It's Chemtrail Wars.
The only K5 know is that there's lines in the sky, and that's all. Why is she on the show? Who's she? Well, dude, I don't know who you are, but I'm one of Rick's really good friends. So get over it, get off the pot or whatever you're on, and get just past the fact that I'm on the show and you're not.
There you go. And we just set off World War III over the chemtrail issue, right? Yeah, that's okay. It's okay.
Oh, the K5 saying, no, don't put words in my mouth. Then don't put words in mine, dude. You only, we've just come on because we had this, me and you keep having this ongoing conversation about this, and we'll probably have this conversation until one of us croaks. And so, until it's all been debunked, right? Then there's going to be conversations. This is Truspiracies, and this is what this is about. And, and it's about not being afraid of being able to talk about things that, maybe there's a little bit of minuscule truth in it. And that's how a lot of these Truspiracies come about. Whether or not any of it is true or not true.
Some of it's true.
Neither one of us know 100% either way. We're not in those planes.
I know 100% for sure that some of this is true.
Some of it is, yes.
Some of it is, 100%.
But some of it isn't.
Yeah, and some of it isn't. Yeah, 100% some of it isn't. Yeah. And I'll tell you, like, if you go into the second half of this guy's video, they
So you
they-
see,
yeah,
that's
they-
where it lies, right? You think that it's only
Sorry, I lost your audio, I think there, Gina.
so, yeah. You know, I mean, and as far as Sandy's calling me Gina the spicy girl. Hi, Sandy. You know, but yeah, I think that we just have to understand that despite whatever is or isn't true, Rick, I think that somewhere in the middle lies the truth. And we all have to remember that, you know, I mean, we can all go this way or we can all go that way, and we can all say this or that. It may or may not. Like you said, some of it's true, some of it's not. How much of it they're doing, we don't know. But it sure is scary.
But I see. I got to back that up. See, everything I'm saying, I think is information that is verifiable. I can point to something and say, that's verified. This is a fact. This is happening. This is real. I can touch this. I know this is true. This is an actual, you know, here's a plane with a tank. This is what they're actually doing. You show me that, and I'm like, okay. And if this was happening on this scale, there's no freaking way that you wouldn't be able to show me the proof. But they don't.
Right.
They don't show me the proof. All they want, what they're saying to people is, look up. The sky is falling. Look, they're killing you. They're killing you. And nothing more than that. Really. And
right. And what is the truth?
And so so there's no evidence there. That's just, I have a scientific explanation for that. What they're saying is, no, you're wrong. That's not true. That's a lie. No, that's science. That's absolute, verifiable science. Explainable, simple, quite clear. But just point up and say, no, that's not that's not a contrail. That's them killing people on a mass scale. That's poison. They're killing you. See, I think that's irresponsible. I think that's driving people nuts.
There's probably a lot of things driving people nuts.
Well, that's sort of the point, though, isn't it? Because there is a lot of that going on, and that's screwing with people's brains because it makes people very, very fearful. Now, you see, if you convince somebody, and so many people now believe these people who are telling you that, if you believe that those vapor trails is actually poison, now you're afraid to drink the water, breathe the air, eat the food. You're afraid to go outside. You're in perpetual fear of the government. That's what they want. That's undermining trust in everything. And that's why in the second half of this guy's video, they get into all these other issues that have nothing to do with the chemtrails. It's all about the legal system, the government, how you can't trust any of those institutions. And that's what it's really about. It's to undermine it's to destabilize everything, to get you fearful of the government. And, you know, and then why are they doing that? Some people are doing it because they're just following a narrative and they're getting 48,000 views on Rumble. That's what this guy's got out of it. And then these other two guys pretending to be pilots, I don't know what they're getting out of it. $50, some paycheck, whatever. I'm just saying.
Yeah,
if it was about the chemtrails, why are they talking about the politics?
Well, because it kind of all goes together because nobody really knows who's doing what. And that's, I think, what it boils down to.
Because it's not about just talking. It's not about the chemtrails. It's about scaring the shit out of people to convince them that the government is trying to kill us all. That's what it's about. It's not about proving the chemtrails. Oh, I'm onto something.
Somebody mentioned something about what happened to the Monarchy because that's what the title of this was, and we never got there.
Yes, we didn't get there yet, but we're going to have a conversation about that too, right? to some degree.
We are.
Yeah. We can move on and do that. I'll tell you what, let's
somebody
take...
did ask if I moved. I actually moved out of the trailer that I was in December and moved to a beautiful place. And I've got a riverfront lot where I am now, and about an hour away from where I was. And this the heater works in this trailer, or the furnace works anyways. But my hot water tank doesn't. It broke down. That decided to got me. But yeah, so anyways, that's a little bit of, there you go. Whoever that was asking, did I move? So yeah, I did. As far as the monarchy goes,
I'll tell you what, Gina, let's take a little break. Let's take a quick break, and we'll come back, and we'll get into this, because we had a very interesting conversation about this earlier today, and we'll share that with people when we come back right after this.
Okay.
Hang on.
Sounds good.
Maverick News. The world is watching.
The information war is raging. Truth without integrity is worth nothing. Maverick News. Because those who have power and those who seek it must be held accountable.
The world is watching.
Join our family of truth seekers. Donate today and add your voice to the chorus of Maverick Knights. Donate at maverickdonations.com. Truth. Integrity. It's the Maverick way. Maverick News. The world is watching.
Okay, we're back. Let's talk politics. But I got to say, just one last thing. The other thing about the chemtrails and a lot of these kinds of issues is people always talk about, oh, that's a distraction, this is a distraction, that's a distraction. Those chemtrails, in my view, are a big distraction. While everybody's looking up, thinking that it is what they think it is, we've got people in Parliament in Canada, members of Parliament, who have been corrupted and have been working with foreign governments to do things that are undermining the sovereignty and the integrity of our nation. So they've got everybody looking up while this is going on inside our own government. And that's not our system. That's not our government. That's coup d'etat. That is I've been trying to tell people this for a long time. That's where the problem is. And so when you undermine trust in the government and you think that it's the actual government that is the enemy, when it's your own government that's the enemy, it becomes very hard to see who the enemy is when they've corrupted some members of Parliament, not all of them, but some, in order to do their bidding. And then they've got you looking up and you think that it's your government that's trying to murder you. So you're against the government. They're weaponizing the citizens against themselves, against our own government. You see? Do you see?
Yeah.
So people
I
now,
do.
hate our own government. We hate our own country. We even hate ourselves. We're fearful of the government. We have to tear that government down. However that happens, this is about destabilizing everything. Those chemtrails, all this narrative about the chemtrails, that's part of the information war. I'm sorry to tell you, but that's what it is. And that takes people straight down a rabbit hole to very dark places where they literally want to get rid of the government. And all that going on while you've got bad actors inside the government even, and in our other institutions who are working to undermine everything that is Canadian. They want to take the country away from us. We can't let that happen. We need to stop, Gina. We need to stop looking up at the distraction and get focused on the real damn problem. Otherwise, we're going to lose this country. That's what I keep telling to people. You think you're awake because you've got one eye open, but because you don't trust the mainstream media. So, and you don't trust the government anymore. So, and largely you probably shouldn't. But, you can't walk around with just one eye open. You got to open the other one too to realize that, now I'm seeing these foreign governments too. They're real bad actors. They're the ones who want to destroy everything. At least over here, with what we have, we can fix it. We can correct it. Anyway, which segues into what we're about to talk about here now, which is the future of the country and the monarchy. And I'll let you kind of take it from there. How did we begin our conversation earlier today with regard to this?
My computer the internet's not so great. You've gone in and out, but I think
it's the CIA. The CIA is the CIA taking over.
We've got. I'm at the end of the property, and sometimes the Wi-Fi just simply doesn't work very good down here.
That's okay.
But yeah. So no, I mean, as far as what's going on with that sort of thing, I mean, it's really scary because, in my opinion, as far as that part goes, if there's somebody that's in the government right now that is actually, responsible for something that's really important, they could be modifying things and stopping us from doing things or having a say in something that that they shouldn't be having a say in anymore because of where they're at and, their belief system and who's backing them. And it's really terrifying when you think about, maybe the guy who's, following behind the taxes and that sort of thing. What if what if he or she or whoever it is, who's responsible for that, what if they've got other countries coming in and pushing all of these different things in? This has been going on a long time, a lot longer than what people are looking for. And I've been following it for a very, very long time. So this isn't new. It's just it's finally being exposed.
Yeah.
Right? This has been going on for years.
Yeah.
So, this is the part that we have to understand here. I mean, the beauty of this is that everybody's finally getting woken up. Everybody's finally waking up. And what's happening here is there's a lot of really bad things going on right now, Rick. But the thing is they've been going on a really, really long time. And I've been screaming from the mountaintops about all of these things. And now finally these things everything that I've been talking about, I'm getting whammed, boom, this, boom, boom, boom. Everything is being, brought to the forefront. Everybody thinks that, oh my God, it's happening. No, it's been going on a very long time, folks. A very long time. And the beautiful thing about this is it's just finally getting exposed, which means we're going to be able to figure out a way to get out of this mess, get the people out of there that are the ones that are causing these problems, and maybe we can make things better. But it has to go bad. This has to come to fruition, Rick. It's kind of like a closure. It's the exposure of what's going on.
Wait. What do you mean it has to go bad? Why do you say that?
Well, because it has to, people have to recognize it. Okay, so like I've been watching it for a long time and I've seen it for what it was for many years. But most people, until they're personally affected by whatever the experience it is, whether it be, you know, the ridiculous taxes and now the new capital gains tax that they don't even have it written up and it's already been approved. I mean, things like that, right? That's what I'm talking about. You know, so I mean, how many times have they brought in so many things through legislator? I mean, even the C-18, C-11, they voted it all in before it was all written down in paper, and we're just supposed to trust them? Like,
yeah, so I mean,
it doesn't make any sense. Like we can't just trust.
Yeah, so we've certainly got some serious issues, and
sorry, you're breaking up there. I didn't get
yeah, I can tell the internet's not working the best for you there. Can you hear me now? So I'm going to ask you this, because we do have bad internet, but hopefully you can hear me. We talked about the monarchy, and explain to me why you don't like the monarchy and you would like Canada to decouple from the monarchy.
Okay. All right. Well, as far as I'm concerned, there's a lot of things that have been going on in the monarchy for a very long time, from, you know, way back in. But I just don't understand my perspective of why we have to have the monarchy involved with our politics and have a final say. I know you're saying something about them, you know, it's kind of like a protection thing. But what if it's not a protection thing? Maybe it's a way for them if the monarchy is part of the elite, and if the monarchy is part of the groups of the power that be, if they are part of those groups, then they ultimately would have a say, or the final say, in what happens in our country. And like you and I had, you know, said, you know, that, well, okay, just say, for instance, I know that this isn't true, but you know, just say, for instance, that everybody voted for PPC, and then the monarchy said, no, we're going to keep Justin Trudeau in. They have the power to do that. That really, really bothers me.
No, it doesn't quite work like that, but okay, I understand what you're saying.
You're gone again.
Okay, can you hear me? Are you able to hear me now?
Yeah, I can. Yeah.
Yeah, okay, so it doesn't really quite work like that. You see, when there's an election, the king, in this case, because now we have a king, basically approves or appoints the prime minister after an election, but it's essentially a rubber stamp at that point. Now, if the king were to say, no, I'm not going to accept you as prime minister, that would trigger some sort of a mechanism where we would probably have to have another election of some kind. The only reason something like that would happen is if the Canadian people either elected or some sort of a dictator that was bent on undermining democracy and preventing or eliminating elections in the future, or if some dictatorial government came to power, overthrew the government that is in place, and destroyed our democracy to install some sort of a dictatorship where we would no longer have elections, like a fascistic government, like they had in Nazi Germany, where there were no more elections allowed, or if they're, just some sort of extremist government. So that's why that provision is in place. And every piece of legislation also receives royal assent, where the king signs off on it at the very, very, very end of the process. And there really haven't been, I think in total, maybe 2 instances where the king has sort of sent legislation back to be reworked without giving it a rubber stamp. Other than that, it's a ceremonial process, and he just rubber stamps the legislation. Now, you indicated that, and I think that's a fine process myself. I don't have an issue with that. And I'll explain why after I let you talk about why, because you had talked about how you had tried to contact the Governor General at some point during the height of the pandemic to express your displeasure with the way the government was responding, and you wanted the Governor General to take action and couldn't get really a response. And I'll just let you explain.
Yeah, so the Governor General basically, I got an email stating that they weren't responsible for that part of legislation and that they didn't have anything to do with that. So, I mean, we think that we've got the Governor General supposed to be backing us for whatever, that we could go to them when there is, so, you know, the implementation of, I can't even say the word, implementation of the hoax. And so, and them being mandatory, and that was against our rights. And so you would think that if anybody should have the power to be able to stop our government, if these guys, you know, I mean, when they come, we pay for all their holiday time. When they come, you know, we pay for all of, you know, tens of thousands of dollars, and it's all on our bill. Well, what do they do for us? They just put the rubber stamp on things and let the government get away with whatever they want to get away with, unless they don't agree with what the government has to say. And well, I wasn't the only one that was, you know, having these problems. But when I found out that the Governor General was the person who I was to talk to if there was problems with the government, to hold the government responsible, and you get a letter stating that from them that they're not responsible for that, I don't know. Like, I mean, my understanding of what they're supposed to be doing and being able to, you know, be there to support and to understand that, you know, when they're going against their civil rights. And
so what you're saying is, if you feel like if you go to the governor, if you don't like what the government's doing, you should be able to go to the Governor General and say, hey, Governor General, I want you to stop the government from doing this thing, whatever it might be. I want you to intervene and
they were experimental. They were experimental.
Okay,
they're not even tested.
Okay. Yep. But I'm just saying. So you think that going to the Governor General is the proper way to go about it, and then you think that the Governor General should have the authority to tell the government, no, you don't do this, you don't do this on any particular piece of legislation.
If people have somebody in place that we're paying in government that is supposed to stand there and that is who they're supposed to protect, are the people, not the government. And if their job is to protect us, then what was she doing? She wasn't doing her job.
See, I'll put it to you this way. If the pandemic issue, that's a hot button issue. So I'm just going to push that to the side for the moment. Okay? Let's take another issue, because this is another one that people have identified in exactly the same way, where people have gone to the Governor General and they've said, abortion. We want you to put an end to abortion in Canada because it's, in these people's view, murder. And the Governor General has an obligation to protect unborn children. The Governor General hasn't done that. The King hasn't, and the Governor General ultimately doesn't make those decisions. The Governor General is the representative of the King in Canada. So it's ultimately the king that decides these things. It's not even the governor general, okay? The governor general's like a liaison. So I don't want the king or the governor general intervening in these matters, and shouldn't be, really, except in the most extreme of circumstances where, again, the sovereignty of the country, our democracy might actually be in jeopardy of being destroyed. Because the monarchy is really there to act as a backstop, an insurance policy against tyranny, against against the destruction of the country. And it's not the place of the king to dictate what laws are passed and which laws are not. That's not really what the king is there for. The king is there to make sure that any laws or rules that are any legislation that is presented to him, it's his job to make sure not so much that he agrees with it or disagrees with it, and not really so much to weigh the issue one way or the other. It's to make sure that the law came to him and was properly, and went through all the proper processes to get the democratic processes in order to get to the point where he has to sign off on it and give it royal assent. What do I mean by that? Every piece of legislation has to go through a process where it's introduced into the House. It goes through several readings where it's voted on multiple times in Parliament by the members of Parliament. Those members of Parliament are our representatives. We send them to Ottawa in Canada. We send them there after we elect them to represent us. They vote on these pieces of legislation. If it makes it through all those readings, it then goes on from there to the Senate, where it goes through multiple readings again and reviews and possible revisions. Sometimes it's even sent back to Parliament for rework, and then it goes back to the Senate, and it can get bounced back and forth, and it can be a very lengthy process because the parties debate it, right? There's debate that takes place on it. Then finally, at the very end of the process, after it's approved multiple times, it goes to the king for royal assent through the governor general. And then the king signs off on it, or doesn't, but always does, because it's gone through all the proper steps. And it's his job to make sure it goes through all the proper steps, to make sure it's been reviewed, that it's been thoroughly debated, that it's been a democratic process, and in that way it becomes the will of the people, because it's gone through that, all the different steps. If it got to the very end of that process, and the king decided that he didn't like a piece of legislation, or if I went to the king and said, hey, you know what, king, I don't like this abortion law that's out there, or that just got passed in Parliament, I don't want you to sign that. I want you to reject it. Then the king is being a dictator, because he is saying that after this entire democratic process, I'm still not going to allow it. I'm going to veto that. I don't care what the will of the government is, which represents the people at this given time. So I'm going to say no. And I say no, so I'm going to reject it. That's a dictatorship. That's not what we have. That doesn't happen, because the king isn't there to assess the merit of the legislation on that level. He's there to make sure that the legislation went through the proper steps, that democracy was preserved, that it represents the will of the people based on the system and everything that has happened. And whether, do you see what I'm saying? So it's you don't want a king because then one person can influence the entire process in an improper way. Now it's no longer democratic. Now it can go through the entire democratic process where we elect MPs, we elect a government, they go through the steps to pass legislation, pass a budget, whatever it might be, go through all that work. debate it, the media talks about it, the public gets involved in public discourse, and then at the very end, the king just says yes or no based on whether the king likes it. Well, then why the hell go through all that? Just have the king sign off on it, or just send it to the king and let him decide. But we don't have that. That's not the way our system works. And that's why it's largely ceremonial. But if you had somebody come here, like say we've got foreign infiltration right now in our government, which has been documented. Yeah. What if we do have a coup d'etat? What if our government is taken over by China? And we have a whole bunch of corrupt members of parliament who are not working in the best interests of the country. What if we find out that Trudeau has been bought and paid for, and his entire cabinet is bought and paid for by some foreign government? I'm not saying that's true, but let's say that that's the case.
That would be one of those things, and they wouldn't tell us.
But we're finding out because we've got the intelligence reports. And so that's right. And they might not tell us, and we might not realize what's going on. But when it gets to the point where the entire country is being undermined, that's where the monarchy comes in. Because then the king can step in and save the country. That's what the monarchy is there for.
But what if the king is what if the monarchy is part of the elite, the whatever, whoever, you want to call them. But
well, that's where these foreign influencers are also in play, because they for a long time have been telling people exactly what you're saying. You can't, they're going to great lengths to discredit and undermine the credibility and authority of. Are you still there? We've lost you. We lost Gina.
I'm back.
Okay, so I'm saying that through the information warfare campaigns that are out there, you're getting a lot of foreign governments trying to fill people's heads full of ideas too, that you can't trust the monarchy, you can't trust the king, that there's problems. And they're, obviously they're spoiled, and there are kind of issues around the monarchy too that are kind of weird stuff, but they serve their purpose, right? And the system that's in place with them as the backstop, it's worked for us throughout the history of our nation and before, and because they haven't intervened, and they just continue to be there. And they have, over time, they've turned sovereignty over to Canada, and that's why we have the Constitution right here. We have that because if you go in,
they do that in 89 or something.
Yeah, and so the monarchy allowed us to do this. They said, yeah, Canada can be a sovereign nation now. You'll still be part of the monarchy as a Commonwealth nation, but Canada gets to determine its own destiny. Canada gets to pass its own laws, do its own thing. Okay, you are now a real country.
What about,
with the Constitution, but we're here as a safety net.
What about that guy Eby? I think is what his name is. He's been appointed into the BC government here.
David Eby.
Yeah, I think it's David Eby.
him?
He's been literally appointed in rather than voted in. And why haven't we been able to have that position be available and vote him out of there and get somebody in there that we've actually voted on? Why is it that they allow for them to bring in people when other people have stepped down for whatever the reason? And
I don't understand. I don't get what you're saying. What do you mean?
They're not voted for, and then
he's voted for. He's a politician. I'm not sure exactly how he he's the premier.
You're breaking up.
Yeah, he is
dang Wi-Fi.
I mean, he's not just appointed. He had to win an election. Yeah, sorry. I'm sorry that the internet isn't working for you. But no, he's like every other politician, he's been elected. Internet sucks.
Yeah,
No,
well, how did they get placed in there when they haven't been voted in?
He was voted in. I don't know where you're getting that. Now, I like in a case where, say, you have a premier step down, right? Like in our system, a premier or a prime minister isn't appointed. They are the leader of the governing party. So in the case of like Trudeau, he's the leader of the Liberal Party. The Liberals win the election because they win the most seats. He's the leader. He becomes the prime minister at the pleasure of the king when the king approves him being the prime minister. Prime meaning, the main or the number one member of parliament for the government, because he's the leader of the governing party. But he had to win his riding, just like every other MP that sits there. Plus, he had to win the leadership of the party within the party itself. So he had to win on two levels, within the party to become the leader, and then win an election in his riding. Otherwise, he can't sit in Parliament and he can't be the Prime Minister.
Yeah, well, that's
so
why
he is elected. Now, the U.S. system is different. This is why our system is better, in my opinion. Because people, and a lot of people, we have to be able to vote for the president. The United States is closer to a dictatorship than we are by a long shot. Because in Parliament, the Prime Minister gets one vote, just like everybody else. Just like a city council vote. He gets a vote, one. He can't just dictate things. In the United States, they vote for the president. The president has a huge amount of power because he has executive powers. And he can just sign a piece of legislation and make it an executive order and have a proclamation. Say, this shall be the way it's going to be. That's why when Trump was in office, he signed his executive orders and rescinded a lot of what Obama had done, and and then he did what he wanted to do. Then Biden comes in and he signs executive orders to rescind what Trump had done and do a lot of what he wanted to do. But that's a pretty dictatorial thing to do, and every president that does those, writes those kinds of executive orders, is always criticized on some level for having done that. And the more of it that they do, the more they're criticized, because they're not passing these laws through the normal chain of democratic process in the United States political system. And we lost Gina. I'll tell you what, let's take a little break. We'll let her get reconnected. We'll come back on the other side.
Greetings, brave Mavericks. Our quest for truth continues. We go beyond fake news. Together we expose propaganda. Together we pull others out of rabbit holes. We are maverick thinkers. We are all unique individuals. Defenders of individual rights and freedoms. Credible. Trusted. Grounded in reality. Maverick News. Maverick News. Defending free speech. Free speech. Donate at freedomreporters.com. Do it now. Tomorrow may be too late. Maverick News. The world is watching.
Okay, I'm back. Hopefully your internet's a little bit better now. So I was just saying our system is different, right? And I think you're still think you're still freezing up.
Well, at least people are getting the gist of what we're saying, you know, I mean, because you and I had kind of had a
Yeah, your internet's really bad. I'm sorry, folks, that this is happening.
Yeah.
Did you hear any of what I was saying, or did you get it? Gina?
I think I think I'm back. Yeah.
Did you hear any of what I said about the difference between the two systems, Canada and the U.S.?
Yeah, I missed that whole thing, but
okay, yeah.
Whatever,
well, I was just,
everybody else got it.
yeah, they did. And just to bring up to speed real quick, Prime Minister gets one vote. The Prime Minister is elected, leader of the party, therefore he becomes Prime Minister. But he only gets one vote on any piece of legislation like anybody else in Parliament. But in the States, you elect the President. The President has way more power because he can just sign off on a piece of legislation through an executive order and make that so without it going through, the other houses, the rest of the process. He can just write it. And that's what actually happened over at the G7. He signed an executive order, essentially providing additional support, ongoing support for Ukraine over time to the tune of billions of dollars. That's just Biden signing something. Trudeau can't do that.
Wow.
He has to go through a process here. That's what I said earlier today with you on the phone. Trudeau's not quite as powerful as people think he is. The only way the Prime Minister really gets to exert power and get what he wants is because he gets to appoint people to the cabinet, give people positions within the government, and even kick people out of his party if they don't toe the line with him. So he puts pressure on them. That's what the government whip is about. The whip is the person who keeps all of the other members of parliament in line to keep them on page with whatever the government agenda is on any given issue, to make sure they vote the party line. And if they don't, they can be reprimanded by having their position taken away from cabinet. Depends on what the situation is. You don't always get them voting in line, like all the way down the party line in sync, but quite often you do. And that's the power that the Prime Minister has. But he can't just sign a piece of paper and just make it so. So our system is different. I think in that way it's better. Now, people talk about the monarchy and we got to get rid of the monarchy. And I would say, okay, if that's what people want, we can make that happen, and much more easily than people realize. All we have to do if we want to get rid of the monarchy is just ask. Just ask. And
who do we ask?
Ask the king. And you know what he'd say? Very likely he would just say yes. Do you know why? Because they're doing it because other countries no, it's happened. It's happening. It's happened regularly. It just happened in.
I doubt that.
Oh, really? I'll show you. Okay, so Barbados. And actually,
but who is it that's acting? It's not the average person. It's got to be the government, right?
Yeah, but
well, our government's never going to ask for that.
But if we,
the government,
no, right here. Here's the story about it, and this is just recent. No, it's happening quite a bit because the British Empire is actually crumbling. And that's because the British Empire is kind of letting a lot of these countries go as they want to go. So, yeah, our government might ask if people here just rallied or started even a campaign to leave the monarchy and demanded a referendum on the issue, and people voted through a referendum if there was enough pressure placed on the government, just like there was with this, the Quebec referendum and things like that, and people wanted it, then the government would, I think, absolutely they would look at doing it. And that's what's happened in Barbados. Here it is right here. Barbados cuts ties with Queen Elizabeth II, becomes a republic in a dazzling ceremony. So this was November 29th, 2021. Almost 400 years after the first English ship arrived on its golden shores, the former British colony of Barbados woke up Tuesday as a republic. The tiny Caribbean nation removed Queen Elizabeth II as its head of state in a spectacular ceremony that began late Monday, breaking its ties with the British royal family, and with it one of the island's last remaining imperial bonds to the United Kingdom. They didn't have a war. They didn't have to overthrow the government. They just did it. They asked. And, they, at the time, the Queen said, okay. Queen said, okay. Jean is back. So there you go. Barbados left the monarchy. They said, can we leave? And the Queen said, okay. And they didn't have to have a war, no violence, no overthrow. That's the way it goes down. That's not a dictatorship. That's not tyranny. That's just self-determination. And
but I don't
nations.
see JT doing that.
Well, it doesn't have to be JT. It could be the next government. And the thing is, Gene, I see all these people trying to demonize the monarchy as though it's some evil thing that's got us all under, it's evil control, and they're enslaving us. You want to leave? They'll let us. We've already gone this far. To actually completely decouple. Not a big deal. It's all ceremonial anyway. And the way King Charles, I think, acts, I don't even think he likes the job. I think he'd probably like a lighter workload so he wouldn't have to sign so many pieces of paper. Frankly. Just ask and ye shall receive. But I'll tell you, these groups, what I see is with the fear-mongering, they're like, they're just, it's an evil dictatorship. They're tyrannical. The king's evil, and they're just, there's no democracy, right? That's what they're telling us. Yeah, your internet's bad. So, my point is, we can leave anytime. So we should maybe look at wrapping this up because your internet is terrible. I'll throw it over to you for your thoughts, if you can hear me at all. No, she's not there. That's okay. And she's almost gone. Maybe she's coming back. I don't know. And either way, I don't even really have a problem. I'm just all about democracy and letting the people have a government that represents the people and the will of the people. So that's my position on it. If people want to decouple, let's have a vote. Let's have a referendum. But there's a process that has to be followed to do that. We can do that if that's what people want. If you don't want to do it, then that's fine too. I see value in having the monarchy, but I don't have an issue with not having the monarchy. I think that we will be just fine either way, as long as we remain peaceful and we have a government that the people get to steer through a democratic process. Anyway, all of that being said, let me just take a quick look in the chat there. Magic Moon says, when will there be a midnight show, Maverick Multimedia? I don't know. That might not be a bad idea. We should have a midnight madness show, maybe on only specific channels. We're working on some other projects around here too. I'll tell you though, what they ended up with in Barbados as a result of this transition to a republic is a government that is pretty progressive, pretty very woke, and pretty left-wing. I have noticed that, and when Trudeau met with the leader of Barbados a few months ago, I took a look at some of the policies and the ideology behind the ruling government there right now, and yeah, it's very, very left-wing, very woke, very, very progressive. I don't think anybody here would be happy with that, but that just shows you, again, it doesn't really matter if you end up with a republic or what we have right now, in Canada. There's always an existential threat to a government when you have a democracy, because the sitting government is only in power until the next election, potentially. So, there you go. Yeah, good idea. Midnight show, I'm in. Well, we can do that. We can definitely do that. We'll do a late night thing. Might be a cool idea. Yeah. Do you ever watch The Hilarious House of Frightenstein? Yeah. We could do like a scary show. And you remember the
Sorry
hey
about
Gina,
that, guys.
yeah, we're gonna move on from all the constitutional monarchy stuff. You ever watch the hilarious House of Frightenstein? You ever see that show?
I don't know. I don't think so.
No? Okay. Canadian show. Vincent Price was on it. So anyway, people here want to have a
It's been a
midnight
long time
Maverick
since I
show.
watched TV, but
Yeah, well, this was in the 1970s. Anyway, somebody wants to have a midnight Maverick show. We'll probably do that. We'll do a special midnight broadcast. And it just made me think of the hilarious House of Frightenstein. And there was a character on there called the Librarian, where he would read nursery rhymes, and he'd be dressed up like a really scary old guy in the library, and he'd be really creepy and scary, and he'd read like Hickory Dickory Dock, but it would be like, he'd do it scary. It was just funny. I don't want to run it because we probably get a copyright strike, but you can find this thing online. If you've never seen it, you should go look at it. It's hilarious. Maybe I'll dress up like the librarian and do a midnight show. and read scary nursery rhymes. Oh, I'm so old. I'm sorry. No wonder nobody under the age of about 50 watches the show. Anyway, Gina, you beautiful portrait there, frozen again. I'm sorry, folks, that Gina's having so much trouble with her internet. Oh, we never even got into this stuff. I wanted to get into these stories because I went into the future, and this is Truspiracies tonight. I went into the future to get next week's news today. This is news that won't even happen until June 17th. And it is only the 13th today. I've got the date right on here. I can prove that I went to the future again to pick up this copy of the Inquirer. But I don't think I should waste this. I don't want to rush through it. So maybe we'll save this and do next week's news either tomorrow or Saturday. Brendan's coming back tomorrow night. And I can tease what we're going to do here. China's new spy attack. Going to talk about that. And this is the big one right here. J-Lo and Ben's sexless marriage exposed. The big question is, what inquiring minds really want to know is, will this story top Tay-Tay's tatas? That's the number one Truspiracy story from the pages of the tabloids. The one that generated the most interest and the most shock here on the Maverick News Channel as part of the Truspiracies series. So, yeah, there's cool stuff in here. I think that the National Enquirer is finally back on track. Last few issues that I've seen, the stories did not have the punch that the stories in here are packing right now. So I'm very excited to get to this with you when we can treat it with the due respect that it deserves. And that means taking just a little bit more time than, say, 10 minutes to scream through these stories. So we'll get into another episode of Truspiracies within the next day or two. And here I am begging, if you are so inclined to support the channel, you can do that by donating at maverickdonations.com. And we do need the support, I'll tell you that. Really, really could use a little bit of help right now. I managed to get in here today. I went out and did some extra work. Got to pay the bills, ladies and gentlemen. But let me find that banner. I'll put it up here for you. Where did it go? There we go. Maverickdonations.com. That'll take you to the Give, Send, Go. Great people over there, Give, Send, Go. You can also donate at freedomreporters.com. That takes you to the PayPal page. That's where most people donate. Still have t-shirts. If you donate $30 or more, send you a t-shirt. $60 or more, send you a shirt with an embroidered Maverick News logo on it. She's back just in time for the end of the show. Yeah, $60 or more.
Sorry, guys.
That's okay, and I can send you an embroidered shirt with a donation of $60 or more. Hoodies, I have those too. We still have Knights of Malta, Exile the Knights of Malta hoodies, and sweatshirts. So if you want any of that stuff, just tell me what size you need. Everything is in black, so you can have it in any color you want as long as it's black. And I still do have, oh boy. Yeah, I have Batmobiles. The embroidered shirts, you get an embroidered shirt, I'll send you a complimentary bonus 1/64th scale die-cast Hot Wheels collectible Batmobile. A variety of different Batmobiles, so it'll be randomly packed. And there you go. So Gina, are you there? Or are you frozen again? Okay.
Yeah, I am.
All right, I'm going to throw it over to you for some final for some final words tonight.
All right. Well, basically, guys, I'm glad that you guys tolerated my Wi-Fi. I'm sorry for that, so I apologize once again to everybody. But I just want everybody to know that, I think that there's a lot of things that are being exposed right now, and I just want to say that the world isn't coming to an end. It's actually starting a new beginning. And I think that we just have to start to believe in that instead of it coming to an end. And I think that's probably a really good place for me to end.
I like that, Gina. I'm thankful for you coming on here tonight so we could have this discussion. And yeah, I hope that people take something positive away from this, because I agree with you. I don't think the world is coming to an end. Tomorrow will be a new day. And even though we've got all these crazy things happening out there in the world, we will prevail. I believe in people, and we're going to make it.
We will.
Simple as that. All right, guys.
We will.
All right. And I will be back tomorrow night. Same bat time, same bat channel at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Brendan's going to be back. So I've been talking to him, and I'm excited to have Brendan join us on the program tomorrow night. So it's going to be fun. Yeah. Been a long time.
That sounds awesome.
Get our old friend back on here. All right. There you go, guys.
All right.
See everybody tomorrow.
See you another time. We'll continue on this Truspiracy thing.
And you keep sending me those links to those chemtrail things, and you keep trying to convince me, okay? And I'll try and keep an open mind. Thank you, Gina, and I'll see all you guys back here tomorrow night on the flip side.
Take care, everybody.
Bye.
This has been a Maverick Multimedia production.